Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. It began with a letter, polite, official, and dripping with arrogance. A homeowners association wanted my land. I said no. That's when the pressure campaign started. SUVs at my gate, forged maps, drones in the night. They thought I'd fold. They had no idea who they were dealing with. It started like a slow drip, harmless at first, barely noticeable. A letter in the mailbox, thick stock, gold trim, and a logo that practically screamed self-importance. Silver Canyon's Homeowners Association. I remember chuckling as I opened it, thinking it was some mass mailer garbage. Instead, it was a formal proposal to purchase my land, complete with language like community alignment, long-term vision, and the kicker, fair market value compensation for integration. Integration into what? Their sterile canyon suburb full of identical clay-colored McMansions and passive-aggressive mailbox flags. My name is Bradlyn Stone. I'm 42, retired military investigator, and currently a professor of constitutional law at a local university just outside Scottsdale. I own a 4-acre property that backs up to a ridgeline the HOA calls unincorporated visual obstruction. My house isn't part of Silver Canyon's. In fact, it's older than Silver Canyon's. Hell, my land patent has Abraham Lincoln's name on it. And that's not even a joke. My great-great-grandfather homesteaded here. The house I live in now, I built it myself. Post-discharge therapy, nail by nail. I wasn't interested in their vision. I sent back a courteous rejection, including a certified letter with a scanned copy of my deed, parcel registration, GPS-marked survey, and notarized confirmation from the county assessor's office stating that my land was not and never had been part of Silver Canyon's. I even highlighted a fun little line in the zoning history, independently governed parcel, exempt from annexation without owner consent. That should have been the end of it, but the drip kept dripping. 2 weeks later, I received another envelope. This one was thicker and less polite. A new offer with a higher price and some underhanded language suggesting that non-compliance might result in regulatory review. That last part got my attention, not because I was worried, but because it told me who I was dealing with. Karen DeFior, president of the HOA, a woman with a short temper, a longer memory, and apparently a god complex the size of Maricopa County. I'd only heard about her from my neighbor across the ridge, Ed, who fled Silver Canyon's after she tried to fine him for building a chicken coop without an approved livestock variance. He said she once had a truck towed for being too muddy. She was the kind of woman who wore pearl earrings to HOA meetings and called herself a civic strategist. I responded with a much less friendly letter this time, through my lawyer. A formal notice of no interest in sale backed by legal clarification that Silver Canyon's HOA had no jurisdiction over my property. I included certified copies of historical cadastral maps, an affidavit from a licensed surveyor, a cease and desist clause regarding future unsolicited contact. I even signed it myself in red pen just to make it memorable. The very next day, someone left a flyer taped to my gate. It wasn't HOA branded. It looked like it had been printed in someone's garage, but it read, "Join our community vision. Stoneview Villas coming soon." There was a crude sketch of my land with tiny villas drawn on top of my porch. I stood there holding the paper like it was a ransom note. The gall wasn't even subtle anymore. It was cartoonish. I scanned it, cataloged it, and added it to my folder. I knew enough about people like Karen to recognize escalation. This wasn't about money. This was about control. The following Monday, a black SUV idled at the edge of my private drive for 10 minutes. The windows were tinted, but I counted 3 figures inside. They didn't get out. Just sat there facing the gate like they were casing the place. I walked out onto my porch in full view, holding my phone like a weapon. They left. That afternoon, I installed a new set of trail cameras with cellular upload and bought a second floodlight for the rear approach path. Not because I was scared, because I've dealt with people who like to play games around property lines. And if there's one thing I hate more than being watched, it's being watched by amateurs. The silence lasted 4 days. On the 5th, I received an email from the HOA's legal firm, a bunch of hungry real estate lawyers who referred to my home as a legacy-locked parcel hindering modern expansion. The tone was clear: get in line or get steamrolled. I didn't even bother replying directly. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer and the county zoning commission. I knew what Karen was trying to do. She was laying the groundwork for a hostile claim. something that wouldn't hold water legally, but might sway city officials if she managed to make enough noise. I spent the evening compiling every piece of paper I had on the land, scanned them to PDF, created backups, and put the originals in a fireproof safe. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was drawing a line in red ink and framing it in steel. And somewhere, I knew Karen was already planning her next move. It was a Friday morning, just past 10, and the sun was already baking the gravel in front of my gate into something that looked and felt like broken glass. I was on the back porch with a cup of strong coffee reviewing student essays when I saw the first vehicle, a white Cadillac SUV with chrome rims and a Silver Canyon's HOA decal in the corner of the windshield, turned off the paved road and pulled up just outside my fence line. That would have been enough to annoy me, but then came the second vehicle, and the third. By the time the fourth arrived, a black Escalade with two bulky men in matching polo shirts, I'd already stood up, dumped the coffee, and walked inside to grab my phone and GoPro. When I came back out, they were setting up like they were running a roadside lemonade stand. One guy unfolded a camping chair and planted it squarely in front of my keypad box. Another propped up a large folder on the hood of the car, flipping through laminated pages. And then I saw her, Karen DeFior, climbing out of the Cadillac like a conquering general dressed in beige slacks, designer sunglasses, and a HOA-branded sun hat. "Mr. Stone," she called through the bars of my locked gate, smiling like this was a damn garden party. "We'd like to speak with you." I didn't answer. I kept walking, slow and deliberate, and propped the GOPRO up on a post facing them. Then I turned on the microphone app on my phone and made sure the outside cameras were recording. After that, I finally said what I knew would get under her skin. "You're on private property. Leave." Now Karen tilted her head and held up a leather portfolio. "This is an official negotiation request. You've received several notices. This is your opportunity to make a smart decision." Behind her, one of the men crossed his arms and took a slow step forward, right up to the line where my gravel met the public easement. His stance screamed intimidation. I recognized it instantly. You don't spend 15 years dealing with cartel couriers and military defectors without learning to read the weight in a man's hips. "6 people on my gate?" I said. "For a conversation?" Karen laughed, like I was being ridiculous. "Bradlin, this land could do so much more. The community has voted to support a redevelopment plan. We're not here to fight. We're here to wait. You'll come to your senses." That was when I realized they weren't leaving. Not in an hour. Not that day. They had folding chairs, umbrellas, clipboards, even a damn cooler. One of the board members pulled out a sandwich. They were planning a full occupation at the edge of my property. At exactly 10:36 a.m., I dialed the sheriff's office and calmly explained that a group of individuals claiming HOA authority were stationed at my private entrance and refusing to leave. The dispatcher recognized my name immediately, probably flagged after my earlier report, and told me a unit would be dispatched. I didn't go back inside. I stayed on the porch, letting them see me watch them. Karen pretended to ignore me, but I could see her glancing every few minutes. Every so often, she'd wave toward the camera or take a call on speakerphone loud enough for me to hear phrases like media interest and deed leverage. At noon, a car pulled up next to the group. A young man with a shoulder-mounted DSLR got out and started filming Karen as she gave what sounded suspiciously like a press statement. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "Waiting for Mr. Stone to do what's right for the neighborhood. He's holding out against progress. We're here in good faith." I took a picture of the cameraman's license plate and jotted down the media logo on his shirt, some no-name real estate blog. I added it to the folder. By 2 in the afternoon, one of the men in polos had moved to block my driveway outright, pacing like a mall cop with delusions of authority. I saw him snap photos of my security post, then pull out a laser measure and start recording dimensions. Karen didn't stop him. At 2:21 p.m., a deputy finally arrived. Cruiser rolled in slow, kicking up dust. He got out and took one long look at the scene before walking up to the group. I stepped off the porch and approached from my side of the gate, keeping my distance. Karen pounced first, handing over her folder like it was a gospel text. "Officer, we're representatives of Silver Canyon's HOA. This property is slated for future community integration. We're simply exercising our right to present a purchase offer and negotiate in person." The deputy blinked, unimpressed. He turned toward me. "Mr. Stone? This is private property. I've documented everything. They've been blocking my gate for over 4 hours. I have no agreement with Silver Canyons, and I've already submitted a formal cease and desist." The deputy sighed, looked back at Karen. "Ma'am, unless you have a warrant or a legal claim upheld by the court, you're trespassing. You need to leave Karen's mask cracked." "Officer, with all due respect, this isn't trespassing. This is community action. We have every right to discuss transitional acquisition." "He's being unreasonable." "That's not how the law works," the deputy said, deadpan. "This man owns this land. Your association doesn't extend past that fence. Pack up your chairs, take your sandwich, and get off his damn driveway." Karen's face was tight, red spots forming on her neck. She looked at me with pure hatred, then hissed, "You think this ends here? You're only making it worse for yourself." I smiled. "See you in court." They left slowly, one by one, like retreating salesmen after a failed pitch. The cameraman packed up, the guards folded their chairs, and Karen climbed back into her Cadillac without another word. But before she closed the door, I heard her mutter just loud enough, "He'll sell." One way or another, I thought they'd cool off after the gate standoff. I was wrong. Karen didn't retreat. She regrouped, and she came back swinging with a weapon far more irritating than guards: bureaucracy wrapped in lies. 3 days after the standoff, I received an official-looking envelope stamped with the seal of the city planning office. Inside was a formal notice requesting inspection of my property based on an anonymous community complaint alleging abandonment, code violations, and visible deterioration. It listed phrases like potential hazard to adjacent parcels and lack of compliance with neighborhood standards. It was laughable on its face, but I could already see what was happening. Karen was trying to get the city to turn up the heat. I called the planning office and spoke directly with the inspector assigned to the case. To his credit, he sounded embarrassed. He admitted he was just doing his job, but when I asked how many complaints they'd received on my parcel in the past decade, he laughed and said, "None. Until now." Then 5 in one day, I invited him out for the inspection the following morning. When he showed up, I handed him my last 3 maintenance records, current property tax receipts, photos from last week showing routine upkeep, minus drone images with timestamps, a copy of the cease and desist letter I'd sent to the HOA. He stayed for 15 minutes, inspected my gutters and front porch, and told me point blank, "This is a clean property. Someone's wasting our time." It wasn't even noon when I saw the next salvo. Someone had planted a new sign next to the road that borders the north edge of my land. A crisp, laminated placard stuck into the ground like a realtor's open house notice. It read, "Future site, Stoneview Villas, a Silver Canyons expansion project bringing luxury to the canyon. Estimated completion 2025. My blood froze. Not because it was dangerous, because it was audacious." The sign had a mock rendering of my house, erased and replaced with a cluster of identical stucco villas, a small artificial pond, and a stone entrance sign that said, "Welcome home." I yanked the sign out of the ground, drove straight to the HOA office, and walked in carrying the damn thing under my arm. The receptionist froze when she saw me. Karen wasn't in, of course. The coward never is when she knows she's crossed a line. I dropped the sign onto the front desk and said, "This is trespassing and false advertising. I want a written retraction on your website within 24 hours. The receptionist blinked, stammered something about marketing teams and conceptual renderings. I didn't wait around for her to finish. I left, but not before snapping a photo of the office directory and noting the names of their board members. Back home, I logged onto their website and almost laughed out loud. Right there on the homepage, a banner with mock-up images of Stoneview Villas, their next phase of community growth. Clicking through, I found a sitemap showing my land as under negotiation, with little pending tags over my property boundary. They even listed square footage estimates, as if they'd already bought the place. But the worst part, my name was listed. Negotiations underway with Mr. Bradlin Stone Public Visible Blatant Lies. I took screenshots. Then I called my lawyer. Deborah Mays didn't yell. She just made a low, unimpressed noise and said, "They just moved this from harassment to libel and misrepresentation. We're going after them." While she drafted the first volley of our counteroffensive, I handled the surveillance. That same night, one of my cameras picked up headlights near the western tree line. A drone. It hovered for a few minutes, then disappeared. I recovered the footage, enhanced the stills, and caught enough of the device's shape to confirm it was a consumer-grade quadcopter with a mounted camera. I logged everything into my tracking spreadsheet: time, date, footage, incident code. I started naming the entries like war files. Operation Stoneview. The next morning, I received 3 anonymous flyers in my mailbox, each printed on high-gloss paper full of soft-focus images of families smiling beside pristine pools. At the bottom, a line read, "Don't let one holdout stop progress. Silver Canyons is for everyone." There was no HOA branding, but it didn't take a genius to see the fingerprints. I added them to the evidence log and started wondering what Karen's endgame was. Did she think this was some kind of siege? That she could harass me into submission with paperwork, propaganda, and signs? She didn't know who she was playing with. I spent that day doing 2 things. First, I went to the county recorder's office and pulled every plat map, parcel deed, and annexation record related to Silver Canyons. Second, I filed a formal complaint with the Arizona Department of Real Estate. I included the website screenshots, the roadside sign, and a printed copy of the inspection report declaring my property in excellent maintained condition. At midnight, a strange email arrived in my inbox from an unrecognized address. The subject line read, "Final offer. Let's not make this personal, no message body, just an attached PDF." I didn't open it. I forwarded it to Deborah. By the time Monday rolled around, I wasn't just angry. I was operational. Everything Karen had thrown at me so far, her roadside theater, her PR campaign, her drone flybys, and fake listings, I had cataloged, time-stamped, and converted into ammunition. It was time to fire back. Deborah called me early. Her voice was crisp and caffeinated. "We're going aggressive," she said. "No half measures. I'm filing a civil lawsuit against Silver Canyons HOA and Karen DeFior personally. I didn't ask what for. I already knew." She had compiled a brutal cocktail of charges: libel and defamation for the website and promotional materials, false advertising and misrepresentation for listing my land as part of a fake development, harassment for the organized 6-hour standoff and repeated unsolicited contact, trespassing via the unauthorized signage and drone surveillance, and the biggest one, attempted coercive acquisition through fraudulent public documentation. We met that afternoon to finalize the filing. Deborah brought the paperwork. I brought a flash drive the size of my thumb, loaded with evidence, drone footage, gate camera clips, flyers, website PDFs, and a full Excel sheet titled KarenAttacks.xlsx. When I handed it to her, she raised an eyebrow. "You name your evidence folders like a military dossier?" "I used to investigate airmen who forged supply records," I said. "Old habits." She smiled. "Remind me never to piss you off." We filed the lawsuit with the Maricopa County Superior Court. Within 24 hours, process servers delivered official court summonses to the HOA board, Karen personally, the real estate firm that printed the flyers, and the shell company listed as the Stoneview Villas development sponsor on the website. That night, their homepage went dark. By Tuesday morning, I received a call from a panicked-sounding man named Richard Lamb, communications liaison for Silver Canyons. He spoke quickly, his voice greased with politeness. "Mr. Stone, we'd like to resolve this amicably. I understand there may have been some overenthusiasm on our part." I let him finish. Then I asked, "Do you represent the HOA's legal team?" No, just public outreach." "Then you're not qualified to have this conversation. Contact my attorney, click." That same afternoon, a black SUV parked across from my gate. Again. But this time, it didn't leave. I noted the license plate, wrote it down, and watched from my window. 2 hours later, the driver got out, walked to the edge of my driveway, and dropped a white envelope onto the gravel. Then he got back in and drove off. Inside the envelope was a letter. No logo. No header. Just text. "All of this can still go away. You don't want to ruin your life over dirt. Take the offer. You're not going to win." I added it to the pile. 2 more signs popped up near the entrance to Silver Canyons. Oversized vinyl banners reading "Future site of Stoneview Villas, Phase 1 sold out," and "Final phase coming soon. Only 1 parcel remaining." They were using my land as a marketing gimmick now. I filed a secondary motion for an emergency injunction to cease all marketing using my name or property likeness. Deborah pushed it through in record time. The court granted a temporary restraining order preventing HOA and its affiliates from referencing me, my land, or any future project connected to my address. By Thursday, the HOA had gone full damage control. Their lawyers responded to the lawsuit by claiming miscommunication, draft phase renderings, and non-binding promotional material. They argued that the standoff at my gate was a community engagement event and that Karen had acted on her own discretion in organizing it. Deborah's response was deliciously surgical. She submitted a 20-page rebuttal that included time-stamped photos of the occupation, audio from my porch microphones of Karen referring to the meeting as a formal push, video of the guards measuring my gate, a notarized statement from the city inspector confirming HOA had submitted complaints using my name and parcel ID without my consent. Then she filed a motion to unseal internal HOA communication records, emails, texts, meeting minutes. Karen must have realized the dam was cracking because her personal lawyer sent Deborah a letter requesting private mediation to avoid escalation. Deborah declined. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she wrote back. "This is coordinated harassment and attempted fraudulent acquisition." Meanwhile, the pressure on me didn't stop. Someone began driving past my property every night around 11 p.m., flashing their high beams at the front of my house. I never caught them stopping, just slow passes, engine low, lights bright. I installed an extra trail cam and mounted a motion-activated strobe light on the mailbox post. Petty, but effective. The drive-bys stopped. Then came the most outrageous stunt yet. Friday morning, a crew of landscapers showed up at the edge of my property with a work order. They were scheduled to prepare the frontage for HOA visual unification. I walked out and asked to see the paperwork. It was printed with a Silver Canyons header and included an address, mine, with landscape refresh, erosion control, boundary beautification marked under work items. I asked who signed it. They pointed to the name at the bottom, Karen DeFior. I handed them a copy of the restraining order and told them if they crossed the fence line, I'd press charges. They left, but they didn't take the equipment. They left it right there, just beyond the property line. 2 gas trimmers, a shovel, and a 4-foot aluminum pole with a Silver Canyons flag zip-tied to it. I didn't touch it. I called the sheriff. He laughed when he saw it. "They're poking the bear now." "No," I said. "They're waking it up." Saturday morning started quiet. Too quiet. No drive-bys, no new signs, no flyers. I made coffee, sat on the porch, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. But peace is a tricky thing when you're under siege. Silence doesn't mean surrender, it means regrouping. Sure enough, around noon, I got a call from a friend at the county clerk's office. Melissa and I go back years. She used to audit case files back when I taught legal ethics to enforcement cadets. "You've Brad," she said cautiously. "You might want to come take a look at something." She wouldn't explain on the phone, just told me to come down to the records department, 3rd floor, bring ID. When I arrived, Melissa didn't waste time. She pulled a folder from her desk drawer, slid it across the table. "Recognize anything?" Inside were several plat maps, printed fresh, each stamped with the county seal, date of last edit, and document ID. But something was very, very wrong. My parcel 11A, registered under my name for more than 16 years, was now marked as pending annexation by Silver Canyons HOA. Not just on one map, on 3. Same title block, same signature line, same disclaimer, filed per Community Infrastructure Adjustment per Agreement SCHOA 215B. I'd never signed, received, or heard of such an agreement. "Where did this come from?" I asked. Melissa frowned. "All 3 documents were filed electronically last Thursday. Someone uploaded a batch from an external notary account. The file signatures check out on paper, but I can tell you right now, these aren't originals." She pointed at the bottom. "Forged notarization, fake witness names, an overlay of a non-existent agreement." It was sloppy, but it had passed first-glance scrutiny. "This looks like a fraud ring," I said, standing up. "I thought you'd say that." We printed out certified copies. I took them straight to Deborah. She went pale when she saw them. "If these made it into the official record system," she said, "Karen's plan was never just harassment. It was hostile acquisition." Within 2 hours, Deborah filed a motion to suspend recognition of all recent plat submissions for Parcel 11A, citing forgery, misrepresentation, and abuse of public record systems. Simultaneously, we alerted the County Assessor's Office, the Arizona State Land Department, and the Real Estate Fraud Task Force. And it got worse. Late that evening, a new website popped up, stoneviewaz.com. It looked slick, professional, almost corporate. Featured a project titled Stoneview Villas at Canyon Rim. Photoshopped renderings showed rows of identical luxury homes built along the ridge, my ridge. The timeline was aggressive. Phase 1 construction begins spring 2026. I clicked on the contact page. At the bottom, managed by Defior Group LLC. That was it. No hiding behind HOA this time. Karen had formed a private development company and used it to file false plats, create fraudulent digital assets, and pass off my land as part of a pending expansion. She thought changing the wrapper would protect her from liability. She thought wrong. I pulled the domain registration. It had been purchased using a shell registrar routed through Nevada. Typical move to muddy ownership trails. But the contact email? A familiar one. Karen.d@silvercanyons.org. Deborah added that to the existing defamation claim. Now the lawsuit included wire fraud, fraudulent land annexation filings, and creation of deceptive public-facing media with intent to coerce sale. The next day, we received word that the court had approved expedited review of the forged plat maps, and a temporary stay on all transactions involving Parcel 11A was now in place. Karen had crossed a new line. This wasn't just harassment, it was criminal. Meanwhile, Silver Canyon's HOA went quiet. No response to legal filings, no updates on their site. Their social media went dark. But I knew better. A cornered animal isn't quiet because it's afraid. It's quiet because it's calculating. I doubled my surveillance, bought 2 new drones, reinforced my property line with trail cameras every 50 feet, motion detectors, solar floodlights, full perimeter lockdown. If they were going to try again, they'd leave a trail I could burn them with. Then came the break I didn't expect. A man showed up at my gate. Mid-40s, wore a loose flannel shirt and work boots. He buzzed the intercom and said, "I used to do survey work for Silver Canyons. I got something you need to see." I let him in. We sat on the porch. He handed me a folder, printouts of internal HOA emails and scanned notes. In one of the memos, Karen's handwriting was unmistakable. Use SCHOA 215B as a shell doc. Pull signature overlay from the Baker Ridge deal. No one's checking. Just get it stamped. She'd reused forged templates from an entirely separate land dispute. And now someone inside had flipped. I looked at him. "Why are you giving me this?" He shrugged. "I don't like watching good land get stolen. And I sure as hell don't work for liars." Monday morning brought a different kind of tension, the kind where your coffee doesn't taste right and every phone buzz makes your skin tighten. Deborah texted early. "They're panicking." "We're close." I didn't reply. I was busy printing everything the whistleblower had handed me. Emails, handwritten notes, survey maps with ghost signatures. One of the documents was a list titled Friendly Contractors, with payment amounts scribbled in the margins and next to one name. Extra incentive if Parcel 11A folds. We submitted it all to the court as an amended filing. The judge moved our case up the calendar. What had started as a civil land dispute was now veering into felony territory, wire fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy. That same day, I noticed 3 HOA properties had quietly removed their Stoneview signage. The website went offline entirely. A cached version still lingered, and we downloaded the full archive. The shell company's trail was sloppy. One email address listed in the domain registry led to a real estate attorney in Tempe who claimed no knowledge of the project. That was the first real crack. Deborah sent a subpoena. 2 days later, we received a trove of emails revealing Karen had used a burner LLC registered in Nevada to funnel funds from HOA reserves into early development planning. Some emails even showed her requesting boundary expansion paperwork, templates from a retired notary who had his license revoked 5 years ago. The pieces were falling into place. Meanwhile, I was still dealing with boots-on-the-ground madness. Someone had nailed a fresh HOA-style notice onto my front gate. Final opportunity to negotiate inclusion. Property considered non-cooperative. It was unsigned, but the phrasing stunk of Karen. I filed another police report and requested an officer swing by to log the incident. Every scrap counted now. 2 nights later, around midnight, a motion alarm tripped on the western side of my property. I grabbed a flashlight and the Mossberg. There were fresh tire marks in the gravel, off-road pattern, wide tread. My trail cam had caught a pickup pulling to the edge of the ridge. The passenger stepped out, tossed something over the fence, and left. I found it the next morning, a waterproof envelope sealed with tape. Inside a single sheet of paper with one sentence typed in all caps, "Sell or someone else gets hurt." Deborah didn't even flinch. They just made our case bulletproof. We forwarded everything to the sheriff and the state land board. I also handed the letter to a contact in the Arizona Attorney General's office, someone I'd known since my days investigating internal fraud for the military. He wasn't smiling when he left my porch. Later that week, a judge signed an order granting full discovery access into Silver Canyon's HOA internal communications for the past 3 years. That included meeting transcripts, vote records, financials, and, most critically, emails from Karen's HOA address. Deborah called it the gold mine. Then came the knock. This time, it wasn't a contractor or Karen or some guard in cheap sunglasses. It was a federal investigator from the Department of Real Estate Enforcement. He introduced himself, flashed credentials, and said, "You filed against Silver Canyons. We've been watching them for a while. You just handed us the smoking gun." Apparently, my case wasn't the only one. 2 other landowners in Maricopa County had reported similar pressure campaigns, harassment, drone surveillance, false HOA claims. Both had folded under pressure. One sold. The other was still fighting. My whistleblower's testimony sealed it. He agreed to speak under protection, and Deborah arranged an affidavit. His statement described how Karen had manipulated board members, used unauthorized notary stamps, and rerouted HOA dues into personal land acquisitions under development fronts. The court, seeing the mounting evidence, granted a temporary freeze on all Silver Canyon's real estate activity. Every project, every transaction, every expansion effort stopped cold. Karen, in response, tried one last play. Her lawyer sent an offer, half-hearted and too late. In the spirit of resolution, our client is willing to purchase parcel 11A at market value plus 10% premium, provided all legal actions are dropped. Deborah laughed so hard on the phone I could barely hear her say no. By Friday, Silver Canyons was imploding from the inside. Deborah received a leak from a junior board member, anonymous tip, burner email, containing an internal chat log from their HOA app. Karen's messages were frantic. She called the freeze an act of aggression and accused certain traders of sabotaging the future of the community. She mentioned a last meeting to rally her allies before things got out of hand. We forwarded everything to the investigator from the Department of Real Estate Enforcement. He told us, "That meeting? Let us know where and when. We'll be there." It took place that Sunday afternoon in Silver Canyon's clubhouse. Gated entrance, polished landscaping, fresh banners on the pillars. Building a legacy. I parked a half-mile away and let the authorities handle the show. An unmarked SUV rolled in ahead of me. 2 plainclothes officers entered through the front. I stayed behind, leaning against my truck, camera in hand. From the outside, it looked like any community meeting. Folding chairs, projection screen, HOA board members in pastel golf shirts sipping coffee. But Karen wasn't calm. Her voice carried through the open door, loud, brittle, desperate. "I am the president of this HOA. I have full authority. Everything we've done is by the book." Then, silence. A man's voice, calm and firm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We have a warrant." The next few minutes played out in slow motion. Karen tried to stand her ground. She shoved a binder toward one of the officers, pointing at it as if she could shout the indictment away. She even tried appealing to the crowd. Tell them we voted." But no one spoke. Not a single board member backed her up. Some looked away. One woman actually slid her chair back and stood, arms crossed, lips tight. They placed Karen in cuffs right there, in front of the HOA seal she'd probably commissioned herself. The agents let her out, ignoring her shouts of fraud, political hit, and, my personal favorite, "This is my community." The news broke by evening. HOA president arrested for land fraud scheme in Maricopa County. The headline ran with a photo someone inside the meeting had snapped. Karen mid-shout, pointing with a shaking hand, 2 agents at her side. Deborah forwarded me the article with one line. "We won't need a closing argument. The press is doing it for us." The next few days were a blur of press calls, legal filings, and stunned silence from Silver Canyons. Their website replaced the homepage with a generic, "We are undergoing administrative review" banner. Karen's name was removed from all listings. But the most satisfying moment came when I received an official notification from the county recorder's office. All falsified maps had been voided. Parcel 11A was now flagged as permanently exempt from HOA jurisdiction per judicial order. Deborah had pushed for that clause. A few days later, I gave a short statement outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed, cameras rolled, microphones thrust forward. One asked, "What would you say to Karen if she were watching right now?" I didn't hesitate. I'd say, some people build fences, others build empires. Karen tried both and ended up behind the wrong one. The clip went viral. Silver Canyons held an emergency vote to dissolve the current board. Several other members resigned before being subpoenaed. The Arizona Attorney General announced a broader investigation into HOA abuse across the state. Apparently, Karen was only the beginning. As for me, I went home. Deborah brought over a bottle of rye and toasted to ethical land use and the last honest parcel in Maricopa County. We sat on my porch under the canyon stars, and for the first time in weeks, the land was quiet. No threats, no letters, no guards, just silence and the electric hum of newly installed motion sensors along the ridge, blinking green. The weeks that followed were quieter, but not uneventful. In the legal world, silence is just the sound of wheels turning behind doors. Deborah called it the fallout phase, where the real damage reveals itself after the explosion. For Karen, that meant multiple felony indictments, including harassment, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, unauthorized use of municipal stamps, and falsification of land records. Her bond hearing was denied. The judge said she posed a continued threat to private property rights. Silver Canyons, HOA, once the pride of the Scottsdale corridor, collapsed under its own weight. A county-appointed administrator took over what remained of the board, and by the end of the quarter, nearly a dozen resignations had come in. Members who had followed Karen blindly were now falling over themselves to distance their names from hers. Some even sent letters of apology to me. Neighbors I'd never spoken to before approached me at the feed store or the post office, mumbling some version of, "Didn't realize how bad it was," or, "She told us you were being difficult." I nodded, accepted the apologies, but didn't offer much in return. I wasn't in the mood to forgive, not yet. My land, however, was finally at peace. I installed new reinforced gates at both entrances, steel-framed, key-coded, with LPR cameras linked to a cloud system and the county sheriff's office. Deborah helped me file a civil protection order that made it illegal for any HOA member, former or current, to approach my boundary line without express permission. Violations would carry fines. I posted new signs, too. Big, clean, and impossible to miss. Private property. No HOA access. No negotiation. No exceptions. Trespassers will be prosecuted. And then, finally, I exhaled. I got back to work, both at the university and on the land. I repaired the south fence myself, laid new gravel on the drive, even started sketching plans for a greenhouse. That old corner of the lot, where Karen had once gestured toward her imaginary luxury villas, was now slated for tomatoes and bell peppers. Reporters kept calling. The story had gone viral in the HOA reform community. Yes, that's a thing. And there were podcasts, blogs, and even a Netflix documentary in early talks. I declined all the flashy interviews, gave one quiet statement to a local station. Just enough to put the record straight. This house was built by my hands. It stands on land deeded before Silver Canyons existed. It is not for sale. Not today, not tomorrow. And certainly not to anyone who thinks community means conquest. They aired it the next night with dramatic music and a slow pan of my canyon view. Whatever. I didn't ask for a soundbite. I just wanted the harassment to stop. And now it had. I still keep the letter they threw over my fence. The one that said, "Sell or someone else gets hurt." It's pinned to the inside of my workshop door, next to the copy of the court ruling that voided Karen's maps. Every time I grab a tool, I see both. One is a threat, the other is a promise kept. And if you ever drive down the back road into the ridge and see a house with a steel gate, a motion sensor clicking softly in the dusk, and a no HOA access sign gleaming in the Arizona sun, you'll know whose it is. Mine. Always was. Always will be.